Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Want to say hello to all the Pewter people that are filing in as we begin this Thursday episode, where we will be talking about the Bucs, who must step up in this very important game against the Atlanta Falcons. We know Mike Evans is the big-time guy on the offensive side of the football. We know that Antoine Winfield Jr., even though the Pro Bowl won't give him his love, we know that he is an all-pro safety and is going to lead the Bucs on the defensive side of the ball. But they're going to need more than that when they try to take first place in the division. So we're going to talk about all that fun stuff in today's matchup, along with a very special guest. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. And our guest today, host of the JP Peterson show. You can also see him at various Lightning games doing his thing over there. I was there last night. You did an awesome job. Ladies and gentlemen, JP Peterson. JP, how's it going?
Thank you, Matty. Appreciate it. Yeah, we had some fun last night at the Lightning game. The boys played very, very well again. So on a little 2-game win streak. Yeah. Now let's drag the Bucs along, shall we? Yeah. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Speaking of drag, Mariah Godwin dragged Todd Bowles through the mud last night.
Yeah.
We probably have to jump into that because we had Matt Matera, Bailey Adams, Adam Slavon, we'll call him Sly, at the press conference today with Dave Canales, also there at One Buccaneer Place. I was at home doing my SR's Fab 5. One Buccaneer Place was in able hands with our Pewter reporters. And so, Matt, just, give me your general thoughts. I watched the press conference, but you were there for it. So what was your take on how Dave Canales answered and navigated the Chris Godwin drama, which, interesting because we played Todd Bowles' comments, right? Yesterday on the show. And you did the snap counts article on Monday about that, and we both immediately said, no, Todd, that's not right. That's like 82% of the snaps.
And so that's what makes it so interesting, is because I don't know if Todd maybe didn't have the numbers in front of him or whatever the case, but he flat out lied when he said that they were subbing him in and out. Like, maybe he didn't play every single consecutive play, but he had more snaps than any other wide receiver. So to say that they were subbing him in and out, and that's why there was such a big difference, that's just flat out not the case. And I think that was part of the reason why Mariah Godwin took such issue. Now, you almost feel bad for Dave Canales in one sense of like, he has to answer for all of this, but this is a Todd Bowles situation. But you can also look at it in another sense of, well, why is only Todd Bowles getting blamed for Chris Godwin not getting the football? I mean, I think your offensive coordinator is a big reason for why a player should or should not get the football. And same with Baker Mayfield as well. So Canales pretty much put the blame on himself and said, we got to get Chris more involved. He said he had a great one-on-one conversation with him as well. And, Godwin, we spoke to him in the locker room. Chris Godwin's always so cool, calm, collected. Nothing really irritates him one way or another. So he said he didn't feel disrespected by Todd Bowles, but definitely didn't sound thrilled over just not being involved in the offense as much this entire season with it blowing up. And the last thing I'll say as well is when Bowles said what he said the other day about they didn't sub him in as much, I didn't take that as, oh, well, Chris Godwin isn't working hard enough. But it seems the Godwin camp, they felt that it was Bowles saying that Chris Godwin doesn't have a good work ethic, which is asinine. I mean, we all know how long he's been there and coming back from the knee injury and being there for mini camp as well when he was like the only veteran there. So interesting how they interpreted the message.
Yeah. JP, I want to get your thoughts on this because, I'm not going to necessarily defend Todd Bowles, but if we're being honest, Todd Bowles has nothing to do with the offense. I think he was kind of talking out of his ass, quite frankly.
I think it was a flippant comment.
Yeah.
I think it was a completely flippant comment. He really didn't know. He was probably like, wow, you know what? Now that I think about it, he didn't get many catches. Yeah. And we're missing the main culprit here, folks. If there is a culprit, it's Baker Mayfield.
I agree.
Baker Mayfield holds the ball. He's the one that makes decision who gets the ball. And then the defense also dictates who gets the ball. Now, I didn't look at the all-22 this week, but and rewatching the game, there were some moments, I think, when Chris is open, and just in watching the other all-22s, there have been many moments that Chris is open, is not getting the ball. I don't think, especially in the last two games, Baker is seeing the field very well at all.
Right.
I think there are a lot of opportunities. I don't know if he's just feels much more comfortable with Mike, and that's okay. You're getting great production out of Mike. But this offense is 23rd in the league because you don't have many weapons. You have them. You're just not varying your offense. You're good. You're very Mike Evans, Rashad White heavy. And just if you have just two options and everybody knows it, it's not hard to defend you. And, the title of this podcast is who needs to step up. Canales needs to step up. Baker needs to step up. And the guys and the other guys on offense need to step up, but they have to be given that opportunity to step up.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is way too good of a receiver to get 3 targets. Now, I know he dropped the first one.
Yeah.
And that was very uncharacteristic. And that was
and to be fair to Dave Canales. Yeah. To be fair to Dave Canales, that was the second play of the game, right? That was the Baker Mayfield's first pass attempt was to Chris Godwin. He was the primary read. It wasn't like, that ball was going to Chris. It wasn't out. And it was a little low, but hit Chris in the hands and he dropped it. Yep. Right. But at the same time, that's not a reason why you go away from Chris Godwin.
Right. JP. Yeah. And again, I think if you're going to Mike Evans, okay. And he had, obviously a monster game. But there were other opportunities to get Chris the ball, and Baker didn't make the throw. I mean, so to me, first and foremost, it's Baker Mayfield. He's the man making the reads. And I don't think the defense was overtly taking Chris away over Mike. But Chris always does get doubled, or a lot of times he does. So and can we say, is Chris Godwin the old Chris Godwin? I think we can all agree that old Chris Godwin was sensational. I mean, he was sensational. This Chris Godwin, I still think there's some residue from that horrific knee injury.
Really, to be fair, this is the older Chris Godwin.
Right, exactly. I mean,
28 next year. Yeah.
And coming off that knee injury was one of the worst I've seen. I mean, let's just be honest about that. And what is he now? 14 months post that? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I mean, he got injured right around this time. I want to say.
Yeah. So it's still
seasons ago.
Yeah, and so it takes it takes at least one full season. Yeah. And let's be honest, his superpower was his speed, his agility, and his power.
Yeah.
And when you take a horrific knee injury like that hits every one of those a little bit. I mean, just my eye test, his explosion, I'll say at this point is, and that run was one of the first times I said, that's the old Chris Godwin.
Right.
He put it in another gear, ran through a couple arm tackles and got to the end zone. I'm like, there we go. Yeah. That's the guy. And I don't know if I didn't know if you saw him early in the season, but it's coming. And I think now is the time for him to really, really step up. And this might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Now that we're focusing on this and Dave Canales is focusing on this. And the other thing is, a lot of these wide receiver screens, well, they used to run a ton of them with Brady. They run some of them now. And when they run them to Godwin, his blockers, are usually Trey Palmer and Kate Otten and Mike Evans. And God bless Mike Evans. He is one hell of a receiver.
Yeah.
He sucks at blocking. He is not a good blocker. For as big a guy as he is, he's just technique sucks. His effort is there, but he just does, and I don't know if his heart's in it or whatever.
I'm 6'5", 220. I'm just going to get in the way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not, it just, I don't mean to be mean, but it's just not one of his fortes. Yeah. And he probably asking, he's like, what the hell am I doing blocking right now? But so I think, that maybe their scheme could be a little better, but Chris needs to get the ball in his hands. He's a fantastic runner. Yeah. And I've got, I'm giving him, that jet sweep, where the hell has that been? That needs to be a staple of this offense. Can we take 7 or 8 of the 50 middle runs and maybe turn them into jet sweeps?
Right.
If
my memory serves me correctly, gentlemen, didn't the Buccaneers end the NFC Championship game up in Green Bay with an end around to Chris up in Green Bay? Right.
Yeah.
Didn't get the first down and he fell down. Right. So
they pitched it to him, but I mean that just shows the confidence that they had in him then that they should still have now, where he's a wide receiver acting as a running back on that play to send you to the Super Bowl. And they put the game in his hands. There were times where Chris Godwin would essentially be your leading fullback on running plays because he's such an aggressive guy. And I think that's been taken out of Chris Godwin a little bit, maybe because he's on the outside a little bit more versus in the slot. But you can tell that it's still in there for Chris, and he just hasn't totally been utilized that way. And to everyone's point, last game, sure, the first throw was a little bit low and he didn't make the play. He only had 3 targets the whole game.
Yeah,
So
there's
it wasn't
only 2
like
more after that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was a factor at all. So if it turns into, okay, that's one less end around for Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins, that means Chris Godwin's getting it instead.
Yeah.
What Bucs fan wouldn't sign off on that?
let's just
I don't
add
think
more.
there's a loyal group of Devin
Let's not
Tompkins.
take any away from anybody. Let's add more. Take them away from the Rashad White up the middle zone blocking, awful, no hope. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but every time I watch that play, I'm like, what's the concept? What are we trying to do here? What's the blocking scheme? Who are we taking advantage of? Or we're just going, oh, it's time for the run up the middle. Oh, that's right. And here we go. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. Get
JP,
the ball to the outside.
Let me get your thoughts on this. When you look at Chris Godwin, 6'1", about 205, right? He's got a build that's similar to Deebo Samuel right there out there in San Francisco.
I was just going to mention that name.
And the thing is I don't know that you should line him up as a halfback like the 49ers have done and run him like Samuel, but some of those end arounds, the jet sweeps, right, the reverses, those kind of things you can do, and that's how they utilize Samuel as well as some of those receiver screens, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think they should get back to that. Also, too, I wouldn't mind seeing, and Canales addressed this a little bit today, but I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Godwin in the slot more. I know that when they go with the 2 tight end sets, that puts Mike and Chris outside, but I'm not sure that Chris has the down in, down out ability like he used to win one-on-ones outside, especially down the field. I think you give him those little 5 and 7 yard zip outs.
Absolutely.
He wins those because of the technique and he's a little physical. He can kind of push off a little bit subtly and make that sideline catch. But, the 20-yard go patterns, right? The sluggo seams, those kind of things. I don't know if he's there, but what we've seen over the last couple of years, guys, when he was in this Arian system, when you're in the slot, you're not on a premier cornerback. You're either on a nickel cornerback, you're on a linebacker, you're on a safety. Yeah. And I think that's where Chris is matched up the best. And we're not seeing that enough, I think. Your thoughts?
No, I was just going to say Deebo Samuel. And I know some people, oh, come on, he's not. He is. In his prime, and a couple of years ago, before pre-injury, he had that yak ability. And if you watch how the 49ers use Deebo, the play the other night he scored on one of them. I think he had 3 scores, but the little tunnel screen, you get a couple blocks and then the entire offensive line comes out and cleans out the rest of the people. And he just hugs the line. Yeah. It's just a brilliant play. And the way they executed it to perfection was just like watching a great symphony. And they did it so well. And they used those abilities of Deebo Samuel. Chris Godwin is that same type of player. He's got great running instincts. He can see blocking patterns in front of him. And you got to take advantage of that. And I totally agree about the slot play because it puts his body against the body of somebody else. Normally that if it's a nickel guy, he's usually 5'10", 180.
Right.
And Chris is going to run through that arm tackle every time. So a 5 yard out turns into a 15-yard gain. It's almost like a freebie. A little option route, a stick inside turns into a 15, 20-yard play because he's going to break that first tackle almost every single time, either through physicality or explosiveness. Yeah, he's got to be the guy that transforms this offense into a legitimate 2 number 1 receiver offense because that's what they're getting paid for. And that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, JP, that was the point that I was going to bring up is, you look at the Bucs offense from a couple seasons ago, even 2019 with Jameis and then when Brady got there in 2020, you had 2 number 1 receivers with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You could make the argument at times that Chris Godwin was better than Mike Evans in certain areas of the game. And then when AB got there, it was, wow, the Bucs have 3 number 1 receivers. But you look at it this season, and sure, maybe some of the injury had to do with it. But now the Bucs don't have 2 number 1 receivers anymore. It's Mike Evans is your clear-cut number 1, and Chris Godwin is just your number 2 guy. And can he get back to being in the argument, in the discussion, as a wide receiver 1? Yeah, probably, but that's gonna, be a little bit on Baker Mayfield and a little bit on Dave Canales. So I think that's the frustrating thing is that you've seen how this Bucs offense can thrive with 2 number 1s, and just hasn't been the case really over the last 2 seasons, but especially this season with the new offense that inspired a lot of hope with this unit.
And if I could say one thing about Chris's wife, Mariah, is it?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes.
It's always nice to see a lady supporting his man. I'm
Yeah.
all for that.
Yep.
Not so sure that was the place. Not so sure
Well,
that was the place.
It's
And I
one thing.
I
It's one thing
understand.
to accuse Todd Bowles of lying when I think that he was really just being ignorant, and I'm not saying that in a
She should know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
He doesn't know
saying
what's
that-
going on over there.
Exactly. I'm saying it in the truest sense of the word, which is he
Yeah.
doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he's stupid and dumb and whatever. It's just he doesn't have anything to do with the offense. I know Buccaneer fans don't believe that. He doesn't. He said that. I've had conversations with him about this off the record. That's his baby. This is like John Gruden has the offense, Monty Kiffin has the defense, right? Todd Bowles had the defense. Bruce Arians stayed at his hair. He was working more with Byron and Tom Brady when he was, right? So that's just how this thing is set up. And so I think Todd was just simply talking out of turn. He didn't really know. But
nobody thinks he doesn't work hard. Nobody is saying anything poorly about Chris Godwin. None of that is going on. He is regarded as the ultimate teammate in that room, as he is. So I don't think any of that was going on. But hey, like I said, you always want your woman supporting you.
That's right.
You always do. But
And speaking of the support here, Bucs Basement with a $4.99 super chat. We appreciate that. Love Godwin's wife put Bowles on blast. He's been treating fans and media like imbeciles since last season. He needs to go. He's lost the locker room. He has not lost the locker room. I'm telling you right now. He's not lost the locker room.
There's so much more we could put him on blast for.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And he has lied before. I mean, infamously, the Cleveland game last season when he flat out lied about like, oh, we were worried about turning the ball over before they went into overtime. So he has been caught lying before.
That'd be way down at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
So but thank you for doing it. I would agree.
Exactly. Yeah. Bucs Basement with the $1.99 super chatter. Baker is scared of the middle of the field. I'll tell you what, he better be afraid of the middle of the field this week, because as I talked about on yesterday's show, I want to get your thoughts on this too, JP. This, if you like defense, and I do, I'm a defensive minded guy. You know that. I think everybody knows that at this point in time. The two best safeties in the NFL are playing in this game. You've got Antoine Winfield Jr., who has been the one-man gang for Tampa Bay on defense. There's nothing he can't do. Sack the quarterback, yes. Force fumble, yes. Checking the box, fumble recovery, interceptions, pass breakups, goal line takeaways. He's done it all.
Amazing.
And Jesse Bates might even be better. He's got 5 interceptions this year, 3 forced fumbles. I mean, if he's not better, he is at least the equivalent. These are two guys that Desmond Ridder on the Atlanta side and Baker Mayfield on the Tampa side need to avoid at all costs, because if you give Antoine Winfield Jr., and he had a great game against the Falcons last time, or Jesse Bates an opportunity, they're going to make you pay, right, JP?
Absolutely. That game that last week was just quintessential Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, he did it all. Led the team in tackles, two tackles for loss, everything. And again, where did we have him playing last year? Completely out of position. How you move an all-pro safety, this team has a penchant for putting people in the wrong places and keeping them there for way too long. I mean, that experiment last year, you could say, I get it sometimes with the experiment. Hey, let's try a little something. See, he's really good. Maybe we get him more in the action. That kind of had a good ring to it. I even said, okay, yeah, that could be good. But 2 or 3 games in, you should have realized, bad idea. Let's move him back. But you didn't do that. Matt Filer. I mean, we can go on and on and on with guys that should.
Luke Gedeke last year.
I mean, just personnel decisions that they're just so slow to react, and that was one of them. But he's been fantastic, and I think this is, Mickey Andrews, the old FSU defense coordinator, one of the greatest of all time. I learned so much about defense from him, and he used to tell me, he'd say, "Boy, you know what? A good safety, that makes your entire defense so much better." So much better, because he and the point was, he turns these 6-yard keeps him to 6 yards, what could be 60. The 12-yard play that could be 70. Right. He's the last line of defense, and when you have a good one, they not only do they make those plays, which are obviously game-saving plays, with great tackles and instincts and being in the right place, but then they also get those key turnovers in those key situations. Lynch used to do that all the time. You know, the interception on the sideline against the Redskins in the playoffs. You know, just the big moments. Those guys have used their knowledge of the entire game. You know, the other team setting up plays to be 2 steps ahead. They're playing the chess game along with them, and they have the athletic ability to then go and implement what they know in their brain. You know, Rondé was that type of player as well, obviously. So, yeah, great safeties can make or break your entire defense, and he's one of the best.
Yeah, all right. So we've talked about a couple of guys now, right? Mike Evans on the offensive side, who's been the clear MVP, and Antoine Winfield Jr. has been the clear defensive MVP. But those guys had great games against Atlanta the first time. Remember, Mike had the lone touchdown for Tampa Bay, 82 yards receiving. And then you look at Antoine Winfield Jr., he had the pass breakup in the end zone to Drake London, saved the touchdown. He had that goal line play where he punched the ball at a Desmond Ridder. Like, I thought Ridder scored, right?
Yeah, we all did.
Ridder thought he scored.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, that wasn't the case. And you know, it was a massive play by Winfield to punch that ball out. So having said that, JP, I want to get your thoughts. Who has to step up on offense alongside Mike Evans? Because I think this is not you know, this is a game where it can't just be Batman. It's got to be Batman and Robin, or better yet, Batman and Superman, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? If we're going to channel our DC comics. And then who on the defensive side has got to step up and help Winfield make some plays, some turnover, you know, possibilities, some game-changing plays. Who do you
well, when you look all around the league, you know, you see number 3 receivers popping up all over the place, and they're really, really good. You know, look at, you know, Cincinnati and Philadelphia. All of the good teams seem to have, you know, a number 3 guy that's, you know, can break out and have 2 touchdowns, you know, just about any time because he has the ability to do so. The Bucs just haven't had that. And Trey Palmer, I think, can be that kind of talent. We've seen that, but he hasn't been able to do it. Is it his fault? Is it Canales' fault? I'll put it, you know, again, is he getting the opportunities? He's had some moments, but I think he can be better. And he can make those plays. So, and those number 3 receivers, kind of like what we talked about before, Scott, they can be difference makers. And, you know, to draw a hockey analogy, I usually do it the other way around. You know, you need that 3rd and 4th line scoring. Yeah. That's what makes you a Stanley Cup champion team. The top 2 lines are usually going to cancel each other out. You need that 3rd and 4th line scoring. Yeah. You know, that third receiver is going to get usually the 3rd worst corner, maybe the 4th worst corner, or whatever. So they should be able to win.
You got to win that matchup.
You got to win that match. Again, on the football field, it doesn't matter who gets the win. It's just you got to have the win. And if you have a consistent matchup against an inferior corner and a guy with his kind of speed, he should be a bigger factor in this offense. Yeah. You know, if he can just catch one deep ball for a touchdown, that changes the way teams have to play. Because now they're looking at you and go,
absolutely.
We got that guy a couple, 2 games in a row. He's gotten deep behind people. Who do we got that can run with him? Nobody. Because he's over at Mike and he's on Chris. Yeah. The next guy you got is probably a 4-7 guy. So that's a matchup can be.
Do you guys think, and this is to both of you, do you guys think that Baker has kind of stayed away from Trey Palmer for a couple of reasons? Number one, dating back to the overthrows where those guys just were not on target against the Lions, but even more recently, right? Remember the catch across the middle that he fumbles? Thank goodness Mike was Johnny on the spot against the Texans in Houston, right? And then in the Colts game, right? Perfectly thrown pass. Looked like a deep crosser. Yeah, it hit Palmer.
He's got to make those plays, man. He's got to make them. Yeah,
right. What are your thoughts?
If I'm Baker, I probably don't trust him a lot. But again, it's one of those things. Is if we're going to be good, we got to get this guy going. If we're going to be good, we got to get Godwin going. If we're going to be good, we got to have other answers besides Rashad and Mike. That's it. Right. And so, that guy has to step up, and I'll kind of put Kate Otten in that role as well, offensively and defensively. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Baker, and this goes back to training camp, just struggled with the deep ball. So did Kyle Trask, and it was kind of a big thing, and kind of a running joke that John Wolford is the best quarterback at throwing deep on the Buccaneers roster. And
it's kind of crazy.
I think Baker, I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but let's remember, Baker's only here for 1 year, and this is his last chance to prove that he can be a starter on a team. So I think he kind of reverts to, well, screw it. if I just keep getting the ball to Mike Evans, I'll have a solid game, and I'm saving my own ass, whether we win or lose, because we don't lose because of me, instead of like, all right, let's bring the whole team forward. Let's put up 35 points, because that really only happened in the one game against the Texans. I don't know if it's like a lack of trusting, because at the end of the day, outside of Mike and Chris, you got a second-year player in Cade Otton, a second-year undrafted player in Devin Tompkins, and a rookie in Trey Palmer. So if he's not going to Trey Palmer, he's still going to a lot of young, inexperienced guys besides Mike and Chris. So, I think it's a little bit more of just not being able to throw the deep ball that's kind of done him in.
I think, and I hear these discussions a lot about deep balls, and being an ex-quarterback myself, let me tell you, it's not just the quarterback. And in fact, I'll be honest with you, it's a kind of a 50-50 thing. A deep ball is, first of all, deep balls are tough because I would say this, the adjustment of the receiver on deep balls, finding the ball and adjusting, is more important than the throw itself. And I'm not saying that exclusively, okay?
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, for instance, the one that Mike Evans on at Indy early in the game. You remember this one?
Yep.
Baker damn near knocked the pylon over. That's where the ball's supposed to be thrown. And Mike never turned his head around until the 7-yard line.
Right.
And then he looks up and the ball, almost hit him in the helmet. And Mike, he's had an issue with this in his career. Sometimes he doesn't get his head around quick enough to look for the ball. Mike's got to be, when he gets even with that receiver, or maybe a step past, or that DB, his head has got to turn and locate that ball, especially indoors with lights. You got to locate that ball. Because at that point, the receiver is going to adjust his route half a yard here, half a yard there, and locate the ball, see the angle of the ball coming in, how his body has to be contorted, what he's going to do. And honestly, that making the adjustment is almost more important, because you're not going to drop. You can't drop the ball like in stride right in his hand every single time. Some quarterbacks do, but most of the time, if you're watching a deep ball, there's going to be. You see Tyreek Hill last week with. He was looking over the left shoulder, but he got his head over, and that dropped right in the bucket.
He's just so fast that he can.
Yeah, he had to stop. He had to stop to catch.
Great
the ball.
adjustment. And if you watch most of his deep balls, he's constantly making adjustments on the ball to catch it, but he's also 5 yards behind everybody. So you can do that.
And I think the thing too that we have to remember about Mike, and you kind of touched on this too with Baker Mayfield, like the lack of height, right? I mean, Mike is 6'5". He's the biggest target on the team. He's easier to spot, right?
Yep.
When you go through the progressions and all of a sudden it's like you're kind of in scramble mode, he's just easier to spot. I mean, Jameis Winston did that too, right? He'd run around and just chuck it up to Mike, but which didn't always work out in Jameis's favor, because those 50-50 balls meant 50% of the time it's catch, 50% of the time it's picked off.
Not a good ratio.
Not a good ratio. But the thing with Mike is he's got such a huge target radius, right? With his frame and his long arms. And I mean, Trey Palmer doesn't have that. Chris Godwin doesn't have that. Those guys are 6'1".
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it too. Is
they're not small, but they're not 6'5".
Correct.
Right. And you look at some of the best deep threats of all time, and we'll keep it Buccaneers related. Like Deshaun Jackson won't go down as a Buccaneer great, but he's one of the biggest deep threats of all time. Not because he's tall, but because he's 5 yards ahead of everyone. Scotty Miller, who ironically the Bucs will be playing against on Sunday. Scotty Miller is not tall by any means, but he was blazing fast, and so he's able to get behind everybody, which is why he had that iconic play. Mike doesn't have to get behind the corner. He can be stride for stride with them, and you just got to put it up, and he'll make the play. But when you're wide open down the field, it's much different.
When a guy's obviously 5 yards beyond a guy, you have a lot more leeway. You put a little bit more air under the ball and let them adjust to it, and you don't just make sure you don't overthrow them. For God's sakes, give them a shot, because they'll normally at 5 yards you'll be good to go. But in getting back to Baker, and you guys can see this on the film. Boy, go watch week 1, week 2, week 3 when he was he was moving around. And he was outside the pocket. And he was making key plays with his legs. I mean, so many game-winning plays in those first quarter of the season were his legs. That has disappeared.
New Orleans, Chicago.
And his ankle, I don't know if his ankle, but also defenses are like, we're going to make him play from a tight pocket.
Right.
When I watch the film, I get kind of the heebie-jeebies as a quarterback. I'm like, God, there's no room to step.
Reminds me so much of Jeff Garcia. JP,
it's so hard to play in a phone
one quarterback.
Oh my God, it's so difficult. You can't see, you can't move. You've seen him try to step up in a pocket, and they've closed that avenue away. Defenses have really, really done a great job with him. Now, and I heard you talking the other day about Kyle Trask, and if they lose this game, I'm with you. We're there, 100%. Kyle can play in a phone booth a little bit better than Baker can because he can
6'5".
see over the top.
Taller.
Yeah. So that's just the way it is, and Baker is going to struggle from a confined pocket. It's just you're going to get. Think about it. We're getting 3 or 4 passes a game batted down.
Yeah,
2.5 of those should be completions, right? By the ratio numbers.
Yeah,
that in one score games,
that
which
could be a first down.
Ever play.
That could continue a drive rather than lead to a punt. You're right. So we've got your offensive guys. Let's talk about the defensive guys. Who has to step up alongside Antoine Winfield Jr., show up in Atlanta, and have a big game?
Well, Kalijah Cansey, number one.
Yeah.
And I correct me if I'm wrong. Was he just coming back in the first Atlanta game?
That was his second game back.
Yeah.
So he had kind of the breakout game against the Falcons. I'm sorry, against the Lions, right? And then, he did contribute on this play. I mean, it was really mostly Shaq Barrett, but I mean, you see Cansey right there in Ritter's grill. But really from a production standpoint, if we want to box score, his game, which you really can't do because he's better than what he shows in a box score.
Yeah,
but he had 2 tackles in this game. He was not as impactful as he was against the Lions, and he certainly wasn't as as he has been lately, right? I mean, he basically had the play at the end of the game that with a hand in the face, pressuring Bryce Young, forcing him to roll to his right, and then had an instance where boom, all of a sudden, Antoine Winfield Jr. interception, right?
Yeah.
So we agree. Cansey is one of those guys that really has to step up.
And I like, and look, the Atlanta's going to try to run the football down our throat. That's what they always do.
Yeah.
They've done it for the past few years, and they've been successful at it. So he's got to have a big game. Vita Vea has to be, Vita's he's kind of had great games this year, and then some games where I thought, he kind of disappeared a little bit.
Right.
So I would say those guys, and then whoever's playing linebacker, and I'm with you, Scott, as we've been on the same wavelength with Devin White the whole way. I have no reason to play him the rest of the way. It's just if Servassier and even JJ Russell are healthy, they should be playing. They're the future of this team. I'm not saying JJ's, a future starter, but he can be on this team and be effective for a long time. Servassier certainly is. Yeah. And Levante, you got to have on the field to have any chance of winning this week, I think, and hopefully he can play this week. So I would say the second linebacker has got to step up, and because it's good to me, it's just going to be about the run game. Yeah, they've got to, and this time we're going to get a mouthful of Bijan Robinson, unlike the last time, and that guy can freaking play, man, out of the backfield as a receiver and a running back. I'm afraid he's going to go off. Hopefully, whatever he did in that first game, to get benched. Oh, he was sick. That's right. I remember. Wink, wink. Whatever he did, hopefully he does the same thing in the meeting room this week because I don't want to see him. But he's going to play, and that's what I worry about. So that, to me, those are the guys got to step up.
Yeah, Matt, how about you? Who are the guys that you agree with JP, or do you have a couple other names?
Yeah, I do agree with JP for sure. My initial thought was Levante David. Not even that Levante David has to step up. Just the fact that he's playing makes all the difference in the world. In a perfect world as well, you would love to say like Shaq Barrett or Yaya Diaby. I just don't see it with the Bucs outside linebackers, though. They've been too.
They'll make a play here or there.
Yeah, they show up. Oh, hey, nice to see you. That type of thing, and it's not consistent week in and week out. So really, my answer would be Levante David, just what he can do. Maybe Yaya Diaby continues on his run of just growing week in and week out. He's been
did have the fumble recovery
for losses. Yeah, he did have the fumble recovery.
Johnny on the spot back in week 7. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this to me, those two guys, anybody in the front 7 involved in the run game and getting a turnover as well. And as we know, Desmond Ridder is very, very prone to those turnovers. So I think the Falcons the last few games have physically along the lines of scrimmage won that battle. Yeah, and I think the Bucs have to reclaim that. I agree that area.
Yep. Yeah. And that's one thing that Baker Mayfield, or was it Todd Bowles? I forget which one it was, but we're talking about being able to, with just their defensive front, without any blitzes, especially in the red zone. The reason why they're so good in the red zone is because their front four does a really good job of stopping the run and taking away some of those red zone runs, right? And that allows them to drop 7 in coverage. And they can also get pressure with those. Now they won't have Grady Jarrett. It's going to be David Onyemata, right, up front.
He's injured, by the way.
Yeah, he is injured.
He's on
right?
the injured list. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we have the injury report right here. Let me just get to that real quick.
Good.
KJ Britt, full participation today. Levante David, second day in a row. He's going to start alongside Servassier Dennis. Both those guys, I've been told, are
Levante and Servassier.
Yeah, they're going to start.
Is Devin on the injury list?
Yes, did not participate. He's not going to play this week.
Good.
So Jamel Dean not going to probably play either. Was out for the second straight day with his ankle and foot injury.
Who?
Robert Hainsey, Jamel Dean.
Who?
Number 35 in your
still there?
in the program. Yeah.
Yes.
Robert Hainsey, center, full participation today with his knee injuries. Josh Hayes returned to practice. He was out sick yesterday. He was limited today. Cody Malk limited for the second straight day with his foot. Vita Vea did not participate with his toe injury for the second straight day. That bears monitoring. We talked about Devin White being out, but Tristan Wirfs full participation today, which is better than limited. That was his ankle and back. So the Falcons injury report pretty much the same as it was yesterday. We talked about the 2 offensive linemen. This kind of bears watching. The right tackle, Caleb McGarry, for the second straight practice, did not participate.
I'm hearing
However,
he's probably not going to play.
Yeah, it looks like he probably won't. That's kind of significant because he's one of their better players. Chris Lindstrom, of course, is their best. He is not on the injury report, but their center, Drew Dolman, is. He did not participate with an ankle, but he was limited today. There's the only changes there. Everybody else, David Onyemata did not practice again. So without Grady Jarrett, without David Onyemata in the middle, boy, you might find some of those inside runs, JP, that might work this week. What do you think?
I'd like to see Nick Leverett get a shot at center. Hainsey was terrible early on. He's been okay lately, but
I think the starting center for the Buccaneers next year is either going to be Cody Malk or he's not on this team. I think they're going to be making a change.
Little tidbit here. The great Chris Lugo, who you know at Bay Area Modern Medical Center, ran into Ryan Jensen the other day. And he is still rehabbing his knee and still getting stem cells. And they're working on that little cartilage pop that all the ligaments have healed in his knee.
Right.
They have this cartilage issue and they're working on getting that regenerated or what have you. So I'd kind of written off Ryan Jensen. I don't know about you guys, but
I completely have.
Yeah. But evidently he's trying to work his way back. So we'll see. I would, and quickly as far as the offensive line goes, you get a center on this offensive line. You go out in free agency or Ryan returns. Whoo! Suddenly, suddenly you got
better. Huge upgrade.
You got it. Gedeke obviously is turning into a very, very serviceable right tackle.
Yeah.
Malk has had a nice run. Love to see the way he's been playing.
Yep.
That's good. Then you put if you can find an all-pro center like you did when you went out and got Ryan.
Right.
And then, left guard's still a little bit of a question mark, but Stinney's been good.
Yeah.
And much better than Filer. And then, of course, you got the best tackle in the game. That's a damn good offensive line, boys. That's a quick fix.
Yeah.
Not only that, but the optics of it for the future looks fantastic.
Yes,
really Luke Gedeke's only in his second year. Tristan Wirfs still very young, and
he's going to get a new deal.
The plan is to give him long-term extension. Cody Malk is a rookie, so really, if you find the centerpiece, then sure, like maybe in a couple of years you switch out a different offensive guard instead of Aaron Stinney, but that's a core group of the offensive line moving forward. And as everybody knows, you win football with obviously good quarterback play, but in the trenches as well. And so that's
you'd want an offensive line like that protecting Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I'm all about it, JP. I'm all about it. Will he be the number 1 pick? That's the big question. Or will it be the new cosmic vibe from Celsius, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Celsius has so many awesome flavors. Check out the Cosmic Vibe. That's one of their newest flavors. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. Can't go wrong with really any of them. The sparkling orange, the sparkling watermelon. I'm a huge fan of the strawberry lemonade as well. There's no sugar. There are no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you may get with another product out there. So maybe if you haven't had Celsius before and you want to try it out for the first time, just go over to the Celsius website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. Maybe it's your Walmart, maybe it's a Target or a 7-Eleven or a health and fitness store, or maybe if you're lucky enough, you can go pick one up. Where, Scott? At your local
bodega. See, I watched the show.
There you
I
go.
love it.
Yeah,
Diabe.
Yes.
And once you keep going to your local bodega and you know you love it so much, where you're like, I can only make so many trips to the bodega. I need to get this in bulk. You can get it in bulk. And I'd recommend getting the variety pack because as you see on the screen, there's so many great flavors and varieties of spice of life. Why limit yourself to one flavor of Celsius when you can have so many? That's when you go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can have Celsius sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain now. It could be a week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks. Make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com.
Oh, I need one right now, really bad, really bad. No, I think we're out too. Oh, I have to get to the store and get one. Those things, I'm telling you, those of all the energy drinks, that one really, I feel a difference every time I drink one. It gets my brain going.
It's legit, man.
There's something in that. There's something in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the old Red Bull formula. I don't know what that back in the day that really got me going. This one is so much better. It's fantastic.
Yep, I'm with you, man. It's I used to be, I used to drink that other stuff, and it's Celsius. It's replaced coffee for me every morning.
Blows it away. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. All right, so let's get to some of the video from today because there's a lot happening, and we'll kind of do a little bit of digesting, shall we, gentlemen, of some of the clips Matty has lined up for us here.
Yeah, so we got Chris Godwin. We got Dave Canales first, and then we got the locker room and had Chris Godwin. So we'll kind of bounce around here, but starting off with Dave Canales, he talked a lot about having a one-on-one conversation with Chris Godwin about getting him the football more, and this is how it went.
His wife went on social media and took some shots at the head coach. We have never heard him complain in the media. Has he been unhappy with his targets, or was that just from his wife? Or
well, he and I had a great conversation. I like to keep most of that between us. But I think the one thing that I can share is we share equal frustration with this thing. And the excitement that I had coming into this season. Now, by no means has he not been productive. Last game was obviously I got to do a way better job being able to get him involved in a game like that with the matchups we had. But he's still getting targets. He's still in the 50s in receptions. And he's a big part of what we do. And if you compare that across the league versus for other number 2 receivers, like he's still a big part of what we do. I would love to see more because I know there's that great player that all of you have seen firsthand, and I want to make that come to life for us to just help us on what our goal is to win this division and to set ourselves up long term.
This next one is we'll go to Chris Godwin now. People want to hear from the man that's making this whole topic. He was asked straight up if he feels disrespected about what Todd Bowles had to say.
Chris, did you feel at all disrespected when Coach Bowles said the other day that the number of targets or lack of catches might have had something to do with the fact that you're in and out of the game and that you're dealing with injuries?
I don't know if disrespected is the right term. I think it's tough because obviously it's tough to get into the game and we all go through different things physically. Being out there and trying to put everything going on for the team and just trying to be a battlefield as I can. You want to contribute and obviously that didn't happen to the effect that I would have hoped. But I mean it's things that you live and you learn from, right? At the end of the day, I was still there. I was able to contribute in some capacity. And also, I don't think Coach Bowles had any malice in what he was saying.
And then this third video, Chris Godwin addresses his wife going on social media and just blasting Todd Bowles.
Mariah, that's my best friend. We've been together for a year, man. 2023 for 11 years now, and she's been my biggest supporter through the whole thing. And I think I know that she's always going to support me. She's always going to have my back. So naturally, there's some frustration when things don't necessarily go how you would expect it. And I think that her intent of the whole thing was just simply it wasn't like a blanket thing. I mean, like that wasn't like the reason why things ended up how we had hoped. And just like making sure that people understood like I worked my ass off, which I did. I worked my ass off to make sure that I'm ready to play, to make sure that I'm able to give my best to my teammates, and that I'm not like a liability out there. And like that was it. Kimberly Pistol, and like I'll like that's my dog. I'm always gonna have her to say what she's doing.
Man, I'm obviously, you've seen stories about him and his wife and how they've been together, and they work out together, the fitness and everything. And every time he talks about her, man, I just think it's awesome. They're just such a great couple, and it's fantastic. And it's like, man, we would all love to have. I got one like that supports me like that. Me too. It makes all the difference in your life and in your world. And I think we're really the media is blowing this out of proportion. It's not like when Brent Grimes crazy.
That's what I was thinking of.
This is not that.
Right.
This is just a loving supporter, best friend. Like sticking up for you. And the word lying, I think, it kind of took it to another level. But I don't get the disrespect. I don't get that connection. Like, where was the disrespect? I mean, I don't get that. I think it's completely.
Say what you want about Todd Bowles, whether you think he's a good coach or a good play caller, or whatever. He's a good dude. I mean, he's a great good guy. He is.
Super guy. And he's not one of those like, a-hole coaches that are going to like lie up there.
He's not a backstabber,
subterfuge, and try to BS us and all that other stuff. There's none of that going on. When he makes a mistake like that, it's just he don't know, and that's just seemed like a good thing to say at the time. You were subbing in and out. What are you going to say? I don't know. But you probably should have said what he always said. I got to go look at the tape and find out.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I think sometimes Todd tucks out a turn, and he did the other day, and it kind of came back to bite him a little bit. So I'm going to chime in with my offense and defensive guys that I think have to step up. I like what I've seen from Diaby.
What a great picture.
Okay. 6 tackles in this last game. He gets sacks kind of in the unconventional way, right? Usually it's like the conventional way is you beat your guy in front of you, right? And you sack the quarterback in the pocket, or you're stunted and schemed, kind of like what we saw JTS, right, where he got that sack in Indianapolis, right? So those are some conventional ways to get sacks. But he has 2 of his 5 sacks literally chasing and using that 4.5 speed, chasing quarterbacks out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage, right? He's just that fast. And so while I think some more of those conventional sacks are coming for him, the fact that he has the speed to do that, and the guys we're talking about are Bryce Young and Josh Allen. I mean, we're not talking about Kirk Cousins here. We're talking about some fast, scrambling dudes. And so for him to get a couple sacks that way is encouraging, but also the 6 tackles last week, right? He really showed up after he gets the start out there in San Francisco. And I think had 1 tackle for loss, kind of got overwhelmed by that 49ers offensive line. So I think he's a guy.
As many do.
Correct. Yeah. I think he's a guy, and I agree with everybody else, with Cansey and both linebackers. But I really think Diaby's got to be one of those guys to step up and really start to assert himself as that down in, down out. I'm going to be a factor against the run or the pass. We saw Shaq Barrett be that guy in 2019, right? He was a factor. And right now, with Shaq being 31, it's kind of hit and miss production standpoint, right? With JTS, who knows, right? Diaby's a rookie. He's still swimming a little bit, but I'd like to see him kind of be that down in, down out guy. And I thought last week was a pretty good step in that right direction. And we'll see how he does in this game. And if he gets some reps on that side against Caleb McGarry's replacement, that could happen. And I think on the offensive side, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go with Rashad White. Everything you guys have said about Cade Otton and Chris Godwin and Trey Palmer, that's valid and legit. But if we look at Rashad White, who I've kind of said, this guy may not be a 1,000-yard rusher in his career. He may not be that guy, but he might be like Alvin Kamara light, right? And what I mean by that is Kamara never had a 1,000-yard season ever, but he's had seasons where he's had 800 yards or 900 yards, but then he's had like 500 yards receiving, right?
Right.
And you add it all up, and it's a 1,300 to 1,500 yard season,
Which
and I
is what
think
you want.
which is what you want, right? Yards are yards, and this is a guy that we know can catch the ball. We know he can score and make things happen there. But if you go back to that game against the Falcons, that was kind of his coming out party as a receiver. 6 catches, 65 yards in that game, right? But he only rushed for 34 yards on 13 carries, had a couple of runs called back because of penalties. But boy, the last 2 weeks, 100 yards against the Colts, 84 yards on the ground against the Panthers. And we've seen 2 breakaway runs, a 38-yard run and a 30-yard run. So maybe this guy is really feeling it now, coming into his own. Matt, you and I talked yesterday. We don't see the hesitation in his game, right? He's not tiptoeing at the line of scrimmage. So, JP, for Rachaad White, if he can come in, doesn't have to have 100 yards, but if he can double his production, get 65 on the ground, right? Still be a factor as a receiver, maybe that opens up more play action pass opportunities for Baker. Maybe it doesn't make the Buccaneers offense so lopsided where they had to pass the ball like they did back in week 7.
Yeah. I was watching the tape of him last week, and I got pissed off at a couple of plays. There was one where he went out in the flat, and I think it was raining a little bit, and he dropped the ball. Yeah. But the way he ran his route was so lazy.
Yeah.
He just had a late, and I hate that.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other plays where he was over the middle, caught the ball, didn't put it away quick enough, and guy reached in and knocked it away. It's lazy.
Yeah.
Snatch it, bring it in. Don't just, don't do that. He needs to play at a next intensity level for me.
He needs to have that sense of urgency in everything he does. I think he's become a more urgent runner.
Yes.
But there's other areas in his game that need to have that same level of urgency to it.
Yes. Urgency is a great word. I use intensity. Urgency is a great word as well. Just like snap it off.
Yeah.
Snap it off. Let's go.
Yeah.
And he's a smooth runner. And I get that. You don't want to take it away. But it just in his mannerisms, the way he plays the game, let's snap it off. Let's take it that intensity level. And even when you talk to him, like he's just kind of a nice, easygoing guy.
Yeah.
Like I want to see a little bit more intensity for him because I think that dude he's got some of the best I call it swing and miss in the game. He can make a miss. He really does. You look at his numbers. When there was times when it didn't appear that way because if you watch the games, you can't make people miss when there's 3 guys in front of you. If it's one-on-one and you're making guys miss, if it's one-on-one, you got to make that first guy miss. That's your job as the running back. So when there's 2 and 3 around you, you can't. He's got to be better.
I'm writing about this in my SR's Fab 5. A little preview here for you, Pewter people that are watching this podcast, and you'll read about this tomorrow. But these stats really jumped out at me. When you look at what Rachaad White did at Arizona State in his last year as a receiver, he caught like 50 passes. And he averaged 10 yards per catch.
Yeah.
And you look at what Alvin Kamara did at Tennessee, and it was less than 10 yards. I want to say it was around 9, like 8.9 or 9.
Yeah.
Right? So he was a slightly better receiver than Kamara was.
He's
in
special
college.
in the open field. He's special.
Yeah.
Get him out there.
And you look at what Kamara's done over his career dating back to 2017. He comes in the league. His average throughout the years is 8.5 yards per catch. It's really good for a running back. Even when Leonard Fournette was kind of like doing his thing in 2021 for the Buccaneers, he was averaging around 7, right? So 8.5, that's really good. But guess what Rachaad White is averaging right now this season as a receiver? 8.4. That's right there in that Alvin Kamara wheelhouse. That's
exceptional.
That's who this guy is, really.
Yeah. Get him the damn
that
ball.
type of guy.
I mean, he's got to have 8 to 10 targets a game. Imagine 8, because those are freebies. You're getting them the ball in space. They should be freebies. As opposed to those, 8 to 10 or 20. What did we go? 18 times up the middle last game? A ridiculous number. Come on.
Many?
Yeah, spread it out. Let them defend the entire field. There ain't a damn linebacker in this league that wants to be out in space with that guy. Nobody. And we don't do it enough. Not even nearly enough. And it's a gimme.
Yeah, and it's been interesting with Rachaad because I feel like his play over the last couple of weeks, and I agree with you that like the urgency needs to be there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him being a smooth player, a smooth operator, as people like to say. But that's not what this offense needs. Like maybe if he was in a different offense, that could work. But this offense is a little more smash mouth. It's interesting with Rachaad over the past couple of weeks because if you just look at the run game and the passing game for Rachaad specifically, it's seesawed a little bit. Like it was great a couple of weeks ago with the passing game. He was essentially the number 2 option because the Bucs won't get Chris Godwin the football. So Rashad White was your wide receiver too, essentially. And
Yeah.
then you look at the Indy game, he had 100 rushing yards, but was a non-factor in the passing game at all. And even last week, granted, all the elements with the weather, the run game got going again. He sealed it on that 30-yard run, but again,
Right.
wasn't a factor in the passing game. So you'd like to see just a complete outing from Rashad White where, maybe it's not 100 rushing, 100 receiving, but to your point, Scott, 80 rushing yards, 100
Right.
receiving yards, or just having his imprint on the game besides a 1-yard touchdown run that everyone else did the work to get there, and then he was the benefactor.
Exactly. Well, and if you're looking for somebody to do the work when it comes to real estate and maybe helping you find a home to purchase, or maybe looking to sell your home, well, there's only one place to turn, and that's Eric Gross with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Folks, I'm telling you, I've gotten the chance to know Eric, and you're not going to find too many Pro Bowlers in the real estate game. It's a little bit of you're swimming with the sharks a little bit, right? They're looking for their commissions and they want to just, flip inventory, et cetera. Eric is not that guy. And that's why he is on the Pewter Report team. That's why, frankly, he should be on your team, because Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, they're part of the eXp Realty Group. They've got a network of over 85,000 agents working across the country. So if you're moving to the great state of Florida, Eric can help you sell your home where you are and find that home in Florida. Or if you're moving out of the great state, we hate to see you go, but he can help on both ends of that transaction as well as anywhere in the state. Eric is from the Tampa area. His father is stationed in MacDill. He's a huge Tampa Bay fan and an avid Pewter Report reader. So the conversation starts there. Let's talk some Tampa Bay football, right? And then let's find your home. Go to housesinfla.com to view his inventory, housesinfla.com, and let Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group take the pressure off the home buying or home selling experience. Find him on Facebook and Instagram at ericgrossgroup.com, or give Eric a call at 513-907-4271. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome at the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Visit housesinfla.com. All right.
As we look at Bucs versus Falcons, biggest game of the season for the Bucs in particular. Well, we do have the Pewter Game Day show coming up at 12 noon, and then of course our live reactions, opinions, analysis, everything at 1:00. So check out our YouTube on Sunday with that. But JP, I was just going to ask you, how do you see this one playing out? You trust the Bucs enough to get the job done, or what are your thoughts?
Nope. I just think Atlanta runs the football way too well. Now I think injury is going to play a huge role in this game.
Yeah.
I think if the Bucs can get the running game going with no Onyemata, I think their linebackers out as well. Their right tackle, get the pass rush going. I mean, they got a puncher's chance, right? They got better than a puncher's chance. But the Bucs got it. This is going to be one of those games where you can't make the stupid ass penalty in the red zone, cost you a touchdown, you get a field goal. You can't, have the holding calls with great Rashad White runs. Those things. Yeah. Come on, guys, we got to be really disciplined, and you got to stop the run. And if Vita Vea doesn't play and Levante David, even let's be honest, he ain't 100%.
Not 100. Yeah.
That's what scares me. And when you can run the football like Atlanta can, and let's also be honest, that first game should have been a 3-score win for Atlanta. They dominated the game. The Bucs hung in there with the 3 turnovers in the red zone.
Red zone, take the turnovers for Atlanta.
Did whatever they wanted to do. So the Bucs just have to play a hell of a lot better than they did in game 1. I don't see it as a great matchup because of that run game.
Yeah.
I think Bijan Robinson is the difference in the game. But if the Bucs are going to win, they have to run the football and then get the play action game going. So my gut feeling is, what is this spread? 3.5, 3?
Yeah.
3. Yeah. I think the Falcons got this one.
Yeah.
And then it's trash time.
Then it might be trash time. Folks, you can check out, please check out pewterreport.com for the Bucs coverage that you need. Breaking news, inside scoop, game coverage, as well as injury reports. Make sure you follow us on Pewter Report social media on X, YouTube. It's going to be Pewter Report TV, of course, Instagram and Facebook at Pewter Report. And we want to make sure that you're subscribing to Pewter Report TV. That's our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like button as well as the comments. Leave some comments for us. That helps our algorithm, helps us get in front of more awesome Pewter people like you. So for Matt Matera and for our guest, JP Peterson, thank you very much. Thank you, Pewter people, for joining us. So make sure that you stay tuned for the next episode, which will be Pewter Game Day at Sunday at noon.
If I may,
So-
Scott, a quick plug for my show.
Yeah,
Yes,
please do.
Yes.
10 to 12 each and every day. What these guys do for the Bucs, we do for all of Tampa Bay sports as we throw in the Rays. I throw in the Rays. And then we do, obviously, I work for the Lightning, so I've got a lot of inside track there as well. So we cover all Tampa Bay sports and college sports as well. And you guys do an amazing job. Matt comes on, Scott comes on, so we do the Bucs as well. 10 to 12, you know where to find us. Apple, Spotify, we're live on YouTube and Twitter and on Facebook and at fanstreamsports.com. Thanks, guys. Always great to be with you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
Love having you on. Thanks for having us on. And
I
enjoy
made
the
it
weekend,
through.
Bucs fans.
I made
Yeah.
it through. I'm
Yes, you
exiting
did.
this way very quickly. Bye-bye.
Exactly. So Bucs fans, we'll see you on Sunday as the Bucs take on the Falcons for Pewter Game Day at noon. For JP, for Matt, I am Scott, and we will catch you on the next edition of the Pewter Report podcast.